just going to go for it. Welcome back, everybody. Exciting to be in person with people. We truly appreciate you coming out tonight. The regular meeting of the Annapolis City Council will be called to order at 7:02, April 11th, 2022. So I did have to go and find my gavel. It was in the other room, so I apologise for being late today. At this time, would you join us for the invocation given by Alderman Savage, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So as the council gathers here to make laws affecting the people of Annapolis, let us remember that we are all connected by our common humanity and by our common love for this city. And let us also keep in mind those on the front line of defending democracy in Ukraine. Thank you.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Aye. Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shandelmeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay? Alderman Savage?
Present.
Alderman Arnett?
Present.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the first item on the agenda.
The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda.
This time I'd entertain a motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Could I get a second, please?
Second.
Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Aye. Alderwoman Pendell Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shandelmeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
There we go. Complete.
Okay, Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, the first item on the agenda is ceremonial items, beginning with a city council citation to the Annapolis Film Festival.
All right, I am looking for the Annapolis Film Festival, people. What a great film festival. Let's hear about it. And we have Lee with us, so I'm going to jump up here and meet you out front.
Am I?
And you want to come out, Sheila, as well?
Yes. Where are you going? Over here? Hey, Patty, you're in the city council today. I just tried to FaceTime you, but you didn't pick up. You're here with everybody. Oh, she can hear you. I was trying to call you. Just have to listen.
Okay, here we go.
Well, it's a pleasure to help the Annapolis Film Festival celebrate 10 years in Annapolis. So, awesome accomplishment. Who would have thought that it would have grown so much? And the efforts of two ladies who had maybe not a little idea, a big idea, that has grown to be really a national, international festival. I mean, they put Annapolis on the map as
the home of the Annapolis Film Festival. And people come from all over the world to participate in our film festival. So that truly deserves some recognition from the city. And so we have a City of Annapolis City Council citation, and it reads, on behalf of the residents of the City of Annapolis, we're pleased to confer upon you the City Council citation in recognition and celebration of the success of the 10th anniversary of the Annapolis Film Festival, recently concluded in Annapolis. Congratulations, Patty White and Lee Anderson. The two of you have worked tirelessly to secure venues, raise money, staff the festival, find sponsors, and most importantly, to bring not only films, but filmmakers to Annapolis so that the residents and visitors can have an immersive cinema experience over the course of 4 days. Your staff and volunteers worked tirelessly to make the entire event seem like an easy and fun enterprise. We know a lot of work goes into this event. Annapolis is lucky to have two people so dedicated to this work and so willing to ensure that participants and attendees have fun, learn a little something, and get to spend the weekend alongside fellow cinemaphiles. Thank you. Presented on the occasion of the 10th anniversary of the Annapolis Film Festival, given under our hands and signed by Mayor Buckley and all 8 members of the council. Congratulations and thank you.
Thank you.
I'll take one photo. And we especially want to thank people for coming out and supporting the film festival. You understand how this industry was hit so hard with COVID, and so many of these venues didn't survive, so many of these events didn't survive. It was only through the perseverance of this team and the support of this city that we are lucky to have this amazing film festival. So I want to thank the public and, of course, you guys.
Thank you.
And Patty, who's on the
Patty,
phone.
do you want to say anything? I'm going to put it by the mic.
I just want to thank everybody, and we appreciate the city being behind us, and we appreciate the town coming out to support our 10th year. We couldn't have done it without all of you, and we hope to see you back in year 11 in droves. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. And this year we had a filmmaker from Kazakhstan and one from Romania that traveled 22 and 23 hours on a plane to get here, and they fell in love with their first experience of America right here in Annapolis, the first city. Thank you so much.
Right.
Okay, photo.
We'll do a quick
Pictures. Can't get her picture on the
Wait,
phone.
put this in the front. Patty, you're getting your picture taken.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, next on the agenda, Mr. City Attorney.
Oh, that's for you, Mr. Mayor, to call that one.
All right, Susie Smith needs to come forward. Come on through. So Susie Smith loves being in the spotlight. So Susie, I can't thank you enough for all you've done. I can't believe we convinced you to come out of retirement, help me, promise to get me through the election, and now you're going to go back to retirement because that's what you wanted to do all along. So thank you so much. I want to give you this citation and these flowers. So on behalf of the residents of the City of Annapolis, we're pleased to confer upon you, this is going to look nice on your wall, this City Council citation in recognition of your work as Chief of Staff in the Mayor's office for the past 4 years. After coming out of retirement to help reorganise the Mayor's office functions, we are pleased that you get to hang up your government identification card for a second time.
third.
I mean, Carter, me, In your role in Annapolis, you've been steadfast in your leadership, taking time to mentor staff members and keep the mayor's priorities as the top focus. You help strategize and legislation and guide the mayor and his team on process and optics. You entered government service with the City of Annapolis right after the bike lane. Helped me straighten out that mess. Went up, and after surviving that turmoil, helped guide the team to numerous successes, including throughout the COVID pandemic. Your wisdom and patience has been a hallmark of your steadfast leadership, and we are all going to miss you. Look at those standing ovations. There we go. Embarrassing people is the best part of Okay, thank you. And I do want to recognise Alderman Sam Shropshire, who's out there. Let's hear it for one of our colleagues. You could stand up, Sam. Good to see you. Welcome back.
We have
Oh, sorry, Jerry. Oh, and Alderman Littman. Let's hear it for him. Sorry, Jerry, I see you so often, so. All right, Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Mayor Buckley's fifth State of City Address.
Right. So good evening. Thank you for being here. This is the first in-person State of the City Address since 2019. So much has happened, and our lives have changed so much in that time. I'd like to start out tonight's remarks by taking a moment of silence for the 104 people we lost to COVID in Annapolis and the more than 10,000 residents who were sickened by the virus, and also for the gruesome war atrocities inflicted on the Ukrainian people by the Russian army. Thank you. I want to also thank the residents for the way you've conducted yourselves throughout this time. Your generosity of heart and spirit of giving, this city has fared better than others. We worked proactively to ensure that our businesses could be successful, and our residents supported that effort in a way that helped us thrive. Our residents deserve a big thank you. Let's do a round of applause for them. Now my thoughts on the state of the city. A story of serving our Annapolis residents. Annapolis is a strong and resilient city, and our residents are fighting to make it stronger. We don't all agree, but we all care deeply. We strive to protect what is unique to Annapolis while continuing to dream big to reach our potential. Let's start about talking about the city's finances. As required by code, I've submitted a balanced budget. There are no tax increases. Over the past... And we started the budget process really early with the City Council, even last year, so we have been working together on this. Over the past 4 years, our team has worked to solidify the financial processes. Rating agencies took note and Moody's and Fitch rewarded that stewardship with a bump in our bond rating. I must acknowledge Finance Director Jody Dickinson. She made sure the city's finances were well managed. Thank you, Jody. Director Dickinson, City Manager David Gerald, and Katie Connolly worked to ensure that federal COVID dollars, American Rescue Plan Act, or ARPA, were available as bridges for us this fiscal year, helping plug budget holes while supporting our most vulnerable residents. The FY 2022 Annapolis will not have to use those ARPA funds because general fund revenues are expected to exceed forecasts by $5 million. At the same time, our departments were frugal, allowing expenses to come in under budget by $2.7 million. In addition, a robust recovery and growth in recurring revenue, occupancy tax revenue, property tax revenue, and state tax revenue. For FY23, that begins on July 1, the good news is that we can continue to be sparing in our use of rescue funds to close shortfalls, leaving us funding to smooth post-pandemic recovery needs. As you know, there are two parts to our budget: operating and capital. The operating budget covers day-to-day items that residents found especially critical during the pandemic. Trash was picked up on time, construction projects could go on because of the planning department. When people got sick or were injured, an EMT showed up, then stayed with them in the ambulance until there was a bed at the hospital. Parks and open spaces were tidy and ready for a walk or a hike or a bike ride during the height of the lockdown and throughout the variant surges. Public Works continued to repair sidewalks, remove snow, maintain traffic signals throughout those difficult past few years. This all happens in the background of our lives. We expect, but don't take time to acknowledge the critical nature of these government services. In fact, people often notice only when things are not working. Throughout the pandemic, we had very few complaints about the skills and professionalism of city staff. They could not phone in what they do. In a few minutes, I'll highlight specifics for each department. I want you to know that staff salaries and department funding is the way we continue to do what we do, serve our Annapolis residents. The second part is the capital budget. Capital infrastructure projects not only upgrade and update the amenities we offer, they also create local jobs. At Wells Cove, we will upgrade the path and create an inviting space to the water's edge. We'll spend $20,000 on pop-up camps for young people in our community this summer. We will complete the rebuild of the Department of Public Works building on Hudson Street. We will continue flood mitigation work, and we will continue to provide funding for things like Christmas lights, the Juneteenth parade, and flowers. Now I'd like to take some time to talk about the accomplishments of our department. But first I'm going to take a sip of water. Sorry. Annapolis Fire Chief Doug Romali has proven himself, another man that likes to be in the spotlight. Everybody look at Chief Romali back there. Has proven himself to be a standout leader of the Annapolis Fire Department. We continued our streak of zero fire fatalities since 2010, touch wood. Over the past 2 years, even with the waves and spikes of COVID, the Annapolis Fire Department maintained consistent staffing to ensure that there was no negative impact on residents. In addition, AFD medical personnel were called in to help with vaccine clinics throughout the year. At Taylor Avenue, Annapolis Fire was able to put a new paramedic unit into service. It is equipped with enhanced decontamination possibilities for COVID, as well as other contagious hazards. 5 new recruits graduated from the Fire Academy, and all were previously trained as paramedics. In addition, AFD hired 5 lateral firefighters and EMTs. By hiring smart, we save on training costs. Speaking of saving, throughout the smart use of grant funding, the private donations, AFD purchased cardiac monitors, defibrillators, got a sprinkler and alarm system installed in the Eastport Fire Station, and retired our city canine Layla and replaced her with canine Maddie. Let's hear it for Maddie. And Layla. The fire department helped with sprinkler legislation and sprinkler demonstrations. They helped more than 750 families with the Santa Run. Lastly, after the Annapolis Tornado touched down, our firefighters were on the scene to assist residents without interruption in those critical first 24 hours. I thank Chief Romali and the entire Annapolis Fire Department for their work on helping our residents. Under the leadership of Annapolis Police Chief Edward Jackson, we have the city's most diverse and dynamic command staff. In the last year, APD has exceeded stated goals in reducing overall incidents of crime in the city, an 8% reduction. In 2021, all homicides, 100%, were solved. In addition, the chief and his team worked tirelessly to solve other violent crime incidents, including a 40% closure rate on robberies and shootings, making Annapolis a leader in the region. In 2021, APD reduced robberies by 31% and shootings by 29%. APD is also proactive in helping formerly incarcerated or other at-risk individuals. Their re-entry program had 30 graduates. Of those, 75% of them are currently employed, and no program participant has reoffended. APD also pursues funding outside of taxpayer dollars. They got $1.6 million in state and federal grants to assist with crime and community initiatives, including technology improvements and equipment. Speaking of state and federal help, our Annapolis police force has been greatly aided and strengthened by collaboration. A significant benefit of these relationships includes minimizing the sales of illegal narcotics in Annapolis, with large substance seizures of drugs and monies. We especially want to thank our federal law enforcement partners in this effort. Chief Jackson has also had to navigate a series of new state laws, and we are working with the county to ensure that Annapolis has a seat at the table for our local police accountability board, and that we are in compliance with training, oversight, and other aspects of the law, some of which went into effect last October, others in effect this July. Like many communities, Annapolis Police face challenges in hiring. Thankfully, the chief has made strides in recruitment, hiring 8 officers and 2 civilians over the past year, as well as maximizing limited resources in our recruitment effort. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge one of the many committed APD officers. Officer Edward Glenn, are you out there? He could not be with us tonight, but I want to just tell you a little bit about him. Back in February, Officer Glenn was driving on the 200 block of West Street when he saw a couple on the sidewalk. At first, there didn't seem to be any reason to take note, but as Officer Glenn passed by the woman, she waved. While initially thinking it was a friendly wave, something didn't seem right. As a police veteran, he trusted his instincts. He returned to investigate. When Officer Glenn approached, the man took off. The woman told Officer Glenn that the man had a gun and had discharged the weapon in the area of Murray Avenue. A police call was broadcast, and APD quickly established a perimeter, gave chase, and apprehended the man. Along his path, APD recovered a Beretta 9mm gun. The gun, which did not come back as stolen, was linked to a county homicide in 2020. While he remains held without bond, he has been charged with drug possession and gun crimes. Tonight, in recognition of his quick thinking, trusting his instincts, and getting the bad guy, I'd like to thank Officer Edward Glenn. Rounding out our public safety team, the Office of Emergency Management, under the leadership of Director Kevin Simmons, another man that doesn't like getting much attention back there in the middle. Director Simmons continued to support testing and vaccine clinics and led the way. They also had a few events that tested the city's readiness. We started off with our Independence Day parade and festivities around the city with OEM's public safety focus and support, and that effort continued throughout the fall. In September, the team had to quickly mobilize to deal with an Annapolis tornado. As you all know, an EF2 tornado touched down, cutting a path of destruction from Forest Drive through Parole into Annapolis Gardens. We had no loss of life, but it caused millions in property damage. While Annapolis was not declared a federal disaster area, OEM worked tirelessly to get support from the Governor's Office and the Maryland Department of Housing and Community Development. That came with its own set of administrative hurdles to get direct relief. At first, DHCD and the Small Business Administration only wanted to offer our residents loans. OEM worked to help residents with applications, to coordinate resources, including working with constituent services in the Mayor's office. Alderwoman Rhonda Pindell-Charles and OEM continued to press the state for resources. Eventually, DHCD loans were converted to direct grants, helping residents with no strings attached disbursements to complete necessary repairs that insurance and other resources didn't cover. Of course, OEM also coordinated flooding and weather events, including a historic flooding event in early fall. They continued their work to combat the opioid overdose crisis with one-on-one substance use disorder interventions and through collaborative work with police, fire, and community services at the Mayor's office. I thank Director Kevin Simmons for his professional approach to helping city staff as well as residents and businesses. The Department of Public Works, under leadership of Director Mike Johnson, has taken on a number of challenges. Before I talk about those, I'd like to recognize a member of the DPW team. Next, I'd like to recognize Asbury Parker. I want to see if Asbury is out there. Everyone's a little shy today. Many of our residents know him on his first name basis because he works directly with customers and plumbers to ensure that any jobs conducted are done right for the first time. Asbury started as a maintenance worker, and in 2 decades he has been with the city. He has worked his way up to utilities supervisor. He takes his job seriously and provides outstanding customer service. Asbury, thank you for all you do. Let's have a round of applause for Asbury. Director Johnson noted that DPW remained fully operational through COVID, Delta, and Omicron variants. Public Works has a wide-ranging portfolio, and I couldn't be more pleased that they are finally getting a new headquarters on Hudson Street. The anticipated move is early 2023, but I imagine they have felt a little unloved after their Spa Road facility was partially decommissioned some years ago. I know it's taken a while to get here, but when we open the door with the new facility, it will be one-stop shopping for parts and equipment. I thank the entire team for their patience. Can I see Director Johnson out there? Yeah. Their work over the past years included completing the tennis and pickleball courts, getting bids for work on the Maynard Burgess House, creating the green gravel poplar bike trail. They've installed traffic calming on Melvin Road, resurfaced and repaired a record amount of miles and sidewalks in the city, and maintained water and sewer mains. They are probably the busiest department we have. They maintain our vehicle fleet, complete work orders for items large and small in every department. They plough our streets in wintry weather. They make arrangements for residents to have sandbags when flooding events occur. Again, thank you. Next up, planning and zoning. We're getting a new planning and zoning director next month. Michael Laplace is coming. Another Mike. We've got about 100 Mikes in the city. So Michael Laplace is coming from Princeton, New Jersey. I thank the council for meeting and quickly moving his appointment forward at our last meeting. I'd like to acknowledge Mike Malinoff. Mike Malinoff, he likes getting attention, who has been in that role. Of course, we're all familiar with the day-to-day work and success of our planning department, helping our residents with permits and inspections. After the council passed a bill for accessory dwelling units, they quickly interpreted the language of that legislation and were able to serve residents immediately seeking to create ADUs. Right. Right now, they are hard at work to finalise the draft for our comprehensive plan, Annapolis Ahead 2040. Every jurisdiction in Maryland is required to develop and update these plans every 10 years. They typically deal with issues related to appropriate use of land. Over the past 2 years, we've asked neighbours, business owners, and those active in their communities to help the city with a vision for the future. Annapolis Ahead 2040 will affirm this vision. The draft version is close to being released for public comment. It will look different to the 2009 plan because the issues of equity, health, and resilience are central themes and are the foundation for the plan's goals, performance metrics, and recommended actions. Even before we release the draft, planning and zoning is already advancing key initiatives, including adopting the first update in 37 years to the maritime zones following recommendations from the Maritime Task Force, kicking off the city's first public water access plan, another Maritime Task Force recommendation. We thank the National Park Service for providing funding and the partnership. Addressing climate change vulnerabilities and strategies through the Military Installation Resilience Response Study. This plan is funded by a major grant from the Department of Defense, and we are partnering with the Navy, Anne Arundel County, and the state of Maryland and other local partners. And finally, we're advancing form-based code, a land use zoning reform aimed at helping commercial and office properties transition from automobile-focused development to more walkable mixed use. This is how we extend the character we have downtown on Inner West Street and Eastport to other areas of the city, what residents and businesses have been asking for. We will soon announce the release of the Annapolis Ahead 2040 draft and will accept public comment. In other planning news, the state of Maryland awarded $400,000 toward updating College Creek Park on Clay Street, renamed Robert Eads Park. We will demolish the existing park and rebuild with plantings, benches, and accessible paths to the water and a memorial to Mr. Eads, a friend of the City Council and a good friend of mine. Crab boating facility has also been approved by the Board of Public Works in 2020. But over the past year, they have worked with the Planning Commission to get approval. In February, a demo permit was issued. We look forward to this new facility rising up in Ward 7 and thank Alderman Rob Savage. And I look forward to a ribbon cutting and the grand opening in the spring of 2023. In the Arts District, we received funding to assist Circle Creative revive a long unused artist space. We applied for it and got 2 significant grants from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development. The first, a $300,000 grant to be distributed among 12 organizations to provide services to low and moderate income residents. Examples include providing home repairs to low-income senior citizens and providing operating costs to the Lighthouse Shelter. The second is a $400,000 planning grant between the city and the Housing Authority to create a community driven plan to revitalise Eastport Terrace and Harbour House. That effort recently kicked off with a meeting between HACA and HUD and the city, and will be a 2-year process. At the end, we may be eligible to tap into upwards of $30 million to implement the revitalisation plan. Whatever residents and community decide that we want that to look like. Our economic development team has spent the last year helping area businesses in all 24 businesses expanded or relocated within the city, equating to 277 jobs. In addition, 39 new businesses opened in this city, creating 242 jobs. One of the ways economic development was called into service was after the tornado and the historic flooding at City Dock. Tonight, we have Walter Vasquez of the International Market on West Street. Right back there, Walter. I'm going to give you a round of applause, please. Walter's grocery store was the hardest hit, was in the path of the tornado. A few days after the storm, he walked County Executive Pittman, Governor Hogan, Alderwoman Pendell Charles, and me and other dignitaries through the devastation. Walter, it was shocking. You didn't have a roof. The twister peeled the roof off the building like a can of sardines. Thankfully, everyone inside was alive, and we were all so grateful that there was no loss of life, even though the experience sounded harrowing for your staff. Honestly, if any of you went there, Economic Development Team has helped Walter to get the money needed, and he will open really soon, and we should all go and support that business.
Please support my business.
Over at Recreation and Parks, our residents frequently interact with the division by visiting a city park, going to a pool, enrolling in a class, dropping kids at the Stanton Centre camp, or enjoying a workout at Pitmoyer. Our Parks division, they work to ensure that all of our parks and hiking trails, including Truxton Park, Street End Parks, and Waterworks Parks, are tidy and ready for residents. And haven't we needed those parks now more than ever? The Parks Division also helps in other areas. They assist DPW in cut and toss efforts, including in the aftermath of the Annapolis Tornado and the winter storm that dropped tree branches into the street and complicated ploughing work. Over at Stanton Centre, they are helping young people with woodworking and cooking classes and art instruction. At the Pitmoyer Rec Centre, a youth basketball skills clinic ran with more than 100 children and 18 teams in the Youth Basketball League and had more than 170 children. They provided space for testing clinics and vaccinations. They ran camps and classes. They hosted community meetings and events including Pass, Pick and Play and Greenscape. Part of the Rec's portfolio includes the Harbour Master. Her team, with our miles of shoreline, our residents get to enjoy the beauty of the bay. The Harbour Master not only directs the daily operations of the harbour, they work to protect all of our creeks and tributaries. Here are a few additional highlights just over the past year. They actively pursued a grant funding and received $250,000 waterways improvement grant to install a floating dock on 6th Street. They also used grant funding for a new bulkhead and floating dock on Cheston Avenue and got $5,000 for redecking 5th Street parks and docks. They served numerous unique maritime events, including the first Tall Ship Festival on Independence Day weekend and a 267-foot American flag cruise ship. I want to thank Archie and Beth, our Harbour Master and our Director of Parks and Rec, for their amazing efforts, and we are so lucky to have assets like the Pitmoyer Rec Centre. Let's hear it for them. The Transportation Department with Acting Director Kwaku has been aggressive in pursuing grants. In FY22, we managed a total of $4.3 million to cover capital expenses like new buses and equipment, operations, including para-transit services. They stepped in after the tornado to provide special buses to bring residents to the recovery resource Centre. This is one that was big for families and school children. They stepped in for drivers for the school bus system when they did not have enough. Now I'd like to acknowledge City Manager David Gerald, another man that loves attention, and Eileen Fogarty for their tireless work over the past year to hammer out the concession agreement and get started on the rebuild of Hillman Garage. One of the things about the new garage that sometimes gets overlooked is that the current garage has no stormwater controls. When it rains, water pours off the roof. We will bring it up to 125% capture with solar panels, EV chargers, as well as more parking spaces and a garage that doesn't look like it's about to collapse at any moment. Hopefully none of you guys parked in there tonight. So the new garage will be in step with the amazing improvements for downtown. The old garage was being propped up to be torn down, and I look forward to the new one going up. In our resilience and environmental efforts, Deputy City Manager Jackie Gild has helped us get a number of items across the finish line, including EPA approval for a no discharge zone petition, a number of stream and shoreline restorations and project coordinations with local nonprofits, a pilot composting program, installation of electric vehicle charging stations, a plan for the restoration of Hawkins Cove, including a $130K grant in funding to get started, spearheading a climate change coalition of local government resilience officers, a plan to incorporate resilience efforts into comprehensive planning and make progress on the city's community rating with FEMA, an initiative that could be a big impact on flood insurance rates for our homeowners, and putting an environmentally equity lens on all efforts to build a stronger and safer, more resilient Annapolis. Are you back there, Jackie? Can you stand up? Big changes in our environmental policies and resilience efforts require new investment. The city has moved forward with an ambitious plan to forge a partnership with the Anne Arundel County to fund resilience and infrastructure. None of this happens quickly, but in September, the Resilience Finance Authority of Annapolis and Anne Arundel County, an initiative that we started here in Annapolis, was created, and we expect to have a director in place this year. We have other resilience partnerships, and they have never been stronger. With the United States Naval Academy, a naval installation, the National Park Service, and through the state of Maryland and more. We are building and strengthening these partnerships because they enhance the quality of life for our residents. I thank City Manager Gerald and Deputy City Manager Gild for helping lead our city efforts on this. Thank you. We have worked these past 5 years to put an equity lens on the work coming out of the Mayor's office. Our Hispanic Community Outreach Specialist, Laura Gutierrez, was recently in Atlanta to talk at a conference organized by the CDC about Take Care Annapolis. Are you out there, Laura? Right. She might be at home with her kids. Putting Annapolis on the national stage for a Mayor's Office initiative that helped drive down COVID and drive up vaccination rates in our most vulnerable populations. Along with, right. And that was the thing about COVID for all of us. It was the big equalizer. If we didn't fix COVID for everyone in this community, we didn't fix COVID. And this community came together to fix COVID for everybody. We still have to be vigilant. Along with fun events from our One Annapolis team, including the Dr. Martin Luther King Parade, Juneteenth, Annapolis Pride, Day of the Dead, as well as a minority business breakfasts and roundtables, we are working to ensure that all Annapolis is seen and heard. We continue efforts through our resource centers and our community services, LEAD, No Harm, NetTown Anti-Dope, to provide assistance to residents. Aside from city tax-funded efforts, we've also been aggressive in seeking state and federal government funding. We spearheaded and received funding from Governor Hogan and the state for 6 $5.5 million to acquire a property in Ward 7 on Edgewood Road to create a heritage park on part of the site that was once Carr's Beach. The state has also committed $10 million for City Dock. In addition, the Burtis House, as well as the Burtis House, which is appraised at over $1 million, and not including the docks. The Burtis property is worth even more to the city as it's the keystone parcel in reimagining City Dock. We are also tapping into federal resources with HUD grant funding for choice neighbourhoods and additional resilience dollars for City Dock, which together with Hillman will take it to the largest ever municipal infrastructure project in the city's history. Now, I've been able to say some pretty amazing things about our beautiful city tonight. That is one of the nice things about being a mayor, getting to brag on the accomplishments of staff and residents. But we also get kudos from outside, including some best city designations in 2021. For example, Travel and Leisure magazine named Annapolis one of the 25 best cities to visit for Christmas. Conrad Nast Travelers named Annapolis one of the most beautiful towns in America. Southern Living magazine named Annapolis to their list of 16 most romantic getaways. I love Annapolis. I love being the mayor. We have done a lot, and I hope we'll all continue on this wonderful journey of public service together. Now we have some slides from the events and activities over the past year. Please enjoy the show. Thank you. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is petitions, reports, and communications, beginning with reports by committee.
Alderman Gay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Fabulous presentation. I'd like to commend my colleagues who have either participated or directly contributed to a number of what you've stated in a variety of ways. I don't think any of what you've suggested tonight will be possible without any of the city council. I'm not sure if that was mentioned, but whether it be from water dredging or to park creating in wards 2, but I know it'll affect 4 and 3 in particular being Robert Eads Park, and those communities being directly related by those women. I'd also like to talk a little bit about the public water access and how we're so excited to partner with. I think anything that the mayor does is a partnership with the city council, because it doesn't get done without the mayor and the city council. It takes 5 votes to get anything done. If he gets water access done, it's because of us. And so I also am excited to partner on the Harkins Cove water access and Eastport Terrace and Harbor House. I'm excited to acknowledge some businesses, all that you have done in the last 3 months. The 3 months for us to not be in session was really decided on legislation. I want to highlight a constituent of mine who, in the 3 months that we've not been present, has opened a music studio off of Gibraltar Avenue, which also happens to be in Alderwoman Pendell Charles's district. But I've been particularly happy to usher that process into the city of Annapolis. I think it'll be beneficial to our city. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to cutting the ribbon with you, Alderwoman, and as well as the mayor. I think that'll be so exciting. As know it's something that he has talked about since year 2. And so I'm gratefully excited for that. As well, I mentioned the public water access, and I'll get into everything later tonight. Monday, April the 18th, 2022 at 6:30 p.m. Will be our Housing and Human Welfare Committee meeting. But again, I really look forward to touching base on some of the points that I've written down as it relates to the council's involvement in the mayor's process. So thank you all.
Thank you. Alderman Shenema.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Economic Matters will be meeting on Wednesday, April 20th at 6:30 p.m. I'm very excited because I'm hoping to get another update on the potential for an economic gardening program, which I've shared with a couple of my colleagues and gotten a lot of you just as excited about that opportunity as I am. And this is not an this is not a Economic Matters issue, but I just want to put this on folks' calendar. On April 28th at 7 p.m., Congregation Knesset Israel will be doing a ceremony for Holocaust Memorial Day. I encourage you guys to attend if you are able to.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Committee met April 6th, and what was before us was R19-22, a water service agreement to extend it to a property at Chesapeake Harbor. We recommended that favorably. Our next meeting is Monday, April 18th at 10 a.m., where we will start our departmental review of the budget, and I welcome the public to review those, because in tandem with what the mayor said, you will see a presentation of their work as well in the budget review. So thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just want to let everyone know that we had to move the regular meeting date for the Environmental Matters Committee because it was bumped for one of the budget meetings.
Oh.
And so we found a new date on, I think it's a Monday, on the 18th, April 18th at 3 p.m.
Thank you. Alderman O'Neill.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to report that the next Transportation Committee meeting will be on Wednesday, April 13th at 4 p.m.
Alderman Pendell Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Alderman Finlayson.
Good evening. As you all will recall, I gave a State of Annapolis public safety address at our council meeting on March 14th, and I provided an update on March 28th. Tonight is another update. As it was intended to do, the address continues to spark a lot of discussion and conversation, and more importantly, action. As a result of that address, we developed the plan, Annapolis United. An update, Rec and Parks Department, Love Our Children. Along with our partnership with Hacker, they are continuing to plan for some very exciting summer camps and trips for our youth for 2022. On April the 2nd, Rec and Parks hosted a community forum at the Pip Morey Rec Center to obtain feedback from residents regarding some possible future programming. Office of Emergency Management, Love Our Neighbors. Our Wellness Mobile continues to address the needs of our residents when it comes to health issues. OEM continues to find ways to improve upon the services that our city's wellness van can provide to our residents. We're looking toward permanency when it comes to our Office of Community Services. Their one-hour presentation to our Public Safety Standing Committee at our meeting on April 4th was outstanding. Please check out their very comprehensive informational link on the city's website. We'll continue to address our residents and businesses' issues when it comes to the full recovery from Tornado Ida on September the 1st, including our renters. Continuing training is always front and center. We look forward to OEM continue to operate and promote the initiatives that are already in place, such as Food Fridays, OD-free, and other substance use disorder initiatives, COVID initiatives, and other appropriate programming initiatives and events. Annapolis Fire Department, peace is here. When our fire department arrives, whether it's a fire or a medical situation, we look for peace and calm and confidence to arrive at the location as well. And with the promotion of good health comes peace. We look forward to our fire department continue to operate and promote their initiatives that are already in place, such as Your Life Matters, which addresses substance use disorders, Life in a Bag, Save a Life CPR classes, the importance of working smoke detectors, and other appropriate programming initiatives and events. Annapolis Police Department, Stop the Violence. Again, part of our police department's plan was publicly announced on March 24th at Rec and Parks Stanton Center, where one of the components of the plan was launched via Facebook Live, namely APD's Annapolis Most Wanted. The second Facebook Live segment was held on April 1st at our city's command center. This bi-weekly series with APD's leadership staff is now entitled Protect and Serve Community and Annapolis Police Department Updates, and will continue to have an Annapolis Most Wanted component, along with the following components. Where are we right now? For example, crime snapshot, overdose update, number of calls for service, number of arrests and seizures. Positive news informational pieces. For example, introduction to new officers, reentry story, lead program, resource centers, chaplain program. Ongoing investigations, for example, cold cases, Annapolis Most Wanted, and Captured Most Wanted. Specifically, recent incidents that APD can give an update about. Upcoming outreach opportunities, for example, movie nights, parades, national night outs. What to expect, and closing comments. It should be noted, within that 1 week time period between March 24th and April 1st, an individual wanted for a variety of handgun offenses and charges turned himself in. Community meetings have been requested and held by APD leadership since Eastport Civic Association's meeting in December. ECA's meeting has been followed by Ward 1 Residents Association, originally scheduled for March, will be rescheduled. Park Place, March, Germantown, Homewood, pending April, and other communities are welcome to schedule. Likewise, APD is preparing for their youth summer camps as well, and they will be coordinating their camps with Rec and Parks. On April 21st, our entire public safety team leadership, along with our mayor, state delegation, and county health department officer, will be guests at the final session of our Annapolis Gardens Leadership Academy. Regarding legislation taken up by our Public Safety Committee, R-1522, based upon the video from the city's Rules and City Government Standing Committee meeting held on April 1st, there was very extensive and wide-ranging discussion and testimony and information delivered and provided at that meeting regarding R-1522. Therefore, at our Public Safety Committee meeting on April the 4th, I, as chair, indicated on the record that our committee would be incorporating into our Public Safety Committee meetings record the testimony taken at Rules Committee meeting on April 1st. Our Public Safety Committee voted 2-1 to forward a favorable recommendation to the council. The one nay vote came from the chair of the Public Safety Committee. Our next Public Safety Standing Committee meeting is scheduled for Monday, May 2nd at 4 p.m. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Did he have a question?
No, please.
Oh, okay. Rules and City Government Committee met on April the 1st. We addressed 3 pieces of legislation. 0621, agency regulations. We had a simple discussion, not simple, but we did not take action, but had a discussion on that legislation. R15, which is the police accountability legislation. The committee took a favorable recommendation. and ID 7222 Historic Preservation Furniture Guidelines was for review and acceptance of their report. The next meeting of the Rules and City Government Committee is Friday, May 6th at 1 o'clock here in council chambers. All are invited. Thank you.
Alderman Arnett, Alderman Gay, did you have a question?
I just wanted to make a quick point. As it relates to recent news, I've been, since we've even been sitting here getting messages about, in particular as it relates to Justin Schaffner, if you have any questions as it relates to any activity which I've been involved and any particular constituent, I encourage them to contact the Ethics Commission. Is that the correct one, Justin Schaffner? Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, sir.
You should contact the Ethics Commission and not directly attack or personally direct message me as it relates to any issue that I have, and that is for any constituent that's listening. Thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Alderman Arnett.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Audit Committee is taking up a review of the city's strategic plan and its relationship to the Performance Measures Program. We were to meet on Monday, the 18th, but that is Easter Monday, and I at least will be returning from family vacation, so we're searching for a new meeting date. With all of the activities going on with the Finance Committee, we may have to push that off till next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Alderman Arnett. Anybody else? Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is comments by the general public.
During comments from the general public, the public may not speak on items that are scheduled for public hearing this evening. Items that are scheduled for public hearing, and I'll call you up when they're scheduled, is O-13-22, sidewalk cafes defined, and O-14-22, debit card and credit card payments. So there'll be separate public hearings, so we'll call you up. If anyone wants to speak on anything other than that, please come forward, state your full name and address. I have a list here, so Gary Weibolt, I think, is the first on the list.
Jumped. Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Council, and good evening. Imagine you come to Annapolis.
Gary, if you could just state your full name and address.
I'm sorry, Gary Weibolt, 706 Tyler Avenue.
Thank you very much.
21403. Thank you. Imagine you come to Annapolis, fall in love with the city, want to put down roots, buy a house, raise a family in the small community of Green Acres. Imagine a great, vibrant community of 139 homes, people walking dogs together, having holiday events together, enjoying each other as a community. A bit of Annapolis serendipity. Then it happens. An illegal rental property being used as a public nuisance with drug dealing activities, noise, and garbage. Imagine many ordinances are broken. Noise, ancillary structures, and clearly a profile of drug party house. Imagine a partygoer defecating on your driveway. Imagine if this happened to you. So what do you do as a homeowner? You contact city services. They'll help, clearly. Now imagine this. The mayor is contacted. The alderman is contacted. The city manager is contacted. APD, they're contacted every night. Other than APD, imagine not getting a response. An Annapolis dream shattered. The next two speakers who live adjacent to the party house where drug activity is taking place are going to give a presentation of what they've been going through. I walk by that house daily and pick up the drug paraphernalia that's left on the sidewalk. Just imagine if action was taken. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could,
I think it's just public comment.
will we give us an address? Or, I'm sorry?
On Tyler.
706 Tyler. So you speaking of the house on the corner of 706 Tyler or?
745 Warren Drive.
I'm sorry?
745 Warren Drive.
Quorum?
Okay.
Warren,
I think
okay.
that we can take this offline, and we're gonna.
I just think
I'm
it's
gonna investigate.
incredibly important considering he's off of 706 Tyler. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, Tobias Sullivan.
Good evening, everyone. My name's Tobias Sullivan. I live at 743 Warren Drive and have for the last 20 years. I'm here tonight on behalf of my family and some of our neighbors, a few of whom are in attendance tonight, to discuss a house in our neighborhood that for the past 2+ years has been used for a stage for large late-night parties, often exceeding 50 people at a time. This is not an occasional event. Some weeks there can be 3 or 4 nights of this. They show up more or less as a convoy around 2 a.m., and it's not unusual for me to be on my way to work in the morning as some of the stragglers are finally heading home themselves. They walk on the streets with open containers of alcohol. They leave in their wake trash. They urinate on our sidewalks, and they disturb everyone's peace with car stereos and drunken yelling. Through the clerk, I sent along about a 45-second clip of one of these parties breaking up around 4 a.m. The house has received so many calls that for the past 2 months, the police now just post 1 or 2 marked units out there every night. Yet this hasn't curtailed the activity. The officers don't seem to have any orders from above to enforce basic code, so the partiers have learned they can walk right by. More disturbingly, we believe the house is being used for the distribution of hard narcotics, and with that, it's attracted a much more sinister crowd. These aren't just local 20-somethings goofing off. Intermixed with them are true criminals. I also sent along the rap sheet of a wallet that was recovered across the street from me from one of the partiers. Look at it, armed robbery, weapons violations, assault, you name it. Just got to have a 3-year prison sentence, not the guy you want your daughter to date. I also made code enforcement aware of a person living in the unfinished garden shed behind the house who we believed was also distributing. However, code enforcement doesn't have any legal tools to deal with this. And it wasn't lost on me that with all the red tape it takes to get a legal accessory dwelling unit authorized, there seems to be no tools to deal with alleged drug dealer living in an illegal one. After a number of instances of vandalism, we installed a security system and were shocked by what we saw happening day and night. Photos of people snorting a white powder in broad daylight and videos where the only reasonable explanation that was happening could be drug dealing. We shared all this with APD, and for the past 7 months, no meaningful action has taken place. I've been doing a little icebreaker and informal poll of people unfamiliar with the story that I meet, asking how many dedicated drug officers do you think our city has? Think of the number yourself. As I've come to understand it, I believe the answer is 2, except that one of them is assigned to an outside task force, leaving 1. Want to tell me what that is?
It's 3 minutes, so just if you can wrap up, yeah.
At every dead end I've encountered, I wonder if the failure is not wanting or not being able to help. I wouldn't wish what we've gone through on anyone. In the end, having exhausted all other avenues, I've hired a lawyer to pursue civil action, and even if successful, this will just push the problem into another neighborhood. The drug dealers will have moved on, and certainly none are behind bars. I ask you all to consider impactful nuisance house regulation and get some answers on why we remain stuck here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Alderman Savage is your ward, Alderman Savage, isn't it?
It's a question for the administration.
Yeah.
I just wonder, it's not, but I think this might be the home. I've received some complaints from my constituents about noise, because this is right across the creek from Ward 7. So just wanted to request that, could I be briefed or kept in the loop on some of the...
This is news to many of us, so we promise you that we're going to get involved and figure out what's going on. Alderman Gay?
Yes, so thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. Not very much news to me as I've read the email I think that was sent. 745 is in Ward 8, if I'm not mistaken, just across from Ward 6 on the Bay Ridge Avenue. Okay, yeah, thank you. I just recently knocked the area. I would encourage the Annapolis Police Department, obviously, to follow up on any accusations, related that the neighbors have complained about. What I would say that this is a fairly suburban area. We've had multiple complaints as it relates to suburban communities and explicit drug use, and particularly some in Ward 6 in the last couple of months within the open. Obviously, if someone is sitting in their front yard, explicitly participating in any type of activity, this much harder to obtain a warrant as opposed to any criminal activity direct in our front that's harming neighbors and constituents. But I would think that's something that we can look into. Like I said, Warren Drive is like literally, I'm looking here now, like maybe less than 1,000 feet from a particular drug community that we have focused on. So I would just ask that these services be spread evenly. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Gary Wright. Yes.
Mr. Mayor, Council.
Thank you.
My name is Gary Rich. I live at 742 Warren Drive. About 3 years ago, the owner of 745 Warren moved in his son and 3 friends. It was largely harmless at first. 20-somethings will be 20-somethings. About 2 years ago, we noticed strange traffic coming and going from the home, and parties began to escalate in scale. Many nights during the week, 40 to 50 people could be seen entering the house at 2 a.m. with cars jamming up the street, making excessive noise, yelling, pumping loud music from their cars, people publicly urinating on the sidewalks. They left and continue to leave behind the smell of urine, bottles and cans, and partial bags of marijuana. Sometime last year, I sent photos of people involved in possible drug use at the house, a video of an apparent drug deal, and other footage providing hard evidence that bad things were going on at this house. I sent this to the mayor, the chief of APD, Alderman Arnett, and the city manager. Not one person responded. The parties and shady activity continued for several months, waking me up at least 3 times a week, week after week. One such night, an officer showed up with 4 others and told me that the next time that they showed up at the property, it would be with citations in hand. I've called at least 3 times since that night, and no such citations have been issued from what I can tell. That was at least 6 months ago. About 3 months ago, police were routinely stationed at the house on prime party nights, usually Thursday, Friday, Saturday. Party activity declined quickly, but returned as soon as it disappeared. Why? My guess is because the posted patrols often did nothing about the noise, yelling, or loud music. I shared with the clerk a YouTube video with the council that clearly shows the inactivity in the face of illegal activities. One evening I called the police because my driveway was blocked. The driver of the other vehicle came out, obviously impaired, operated the vehicle to park it with a headlight out, and then left it 3 feet from the curb as the officers watched and did nothing. Last week, a person walked up to the house with an open container, was confronted by an officer, told to pour it out, and asked to go on his way. In case you think these are harmless partiers, a neighbor found a driver's license a few doors down from the party house. The person has an extensive record, including charges of armed robbery, possession, weapons charges, and more. I'm not blaming the officers because I don't know what their marching orders are. At this point, it's obvious something is wrong with APT leadership or that the department is severely understaffed. Should our neighborhood continue to be subjected to this dangerous nonsense, or could we possibly finally get some action? Thank you.
Thank you. Jennifer Smock.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. My name is Jennifer Smock. I live at 814 Tyler Avenue. I'm here to support my neighbors. This is a young community where we've had a number of new families move into Green Acres. It's a fabulous thing. We've got this great turnover in this neighborhood. A lot of these new families with young children. This is considerably concerning for our neighborhood. So as I support my neighbors, I support the mayor and the council in trying to take some action. Thank you.
Thank you all for your testimony. It's clearly not acceptable. So we will, I'm going to do some work when we leave here. So I promise you, I'll call you personally. Okay. Next up is Bill Reichard.
While he's walking up, Mr. Mayor, I just ask that the aldermen be kept a brief of the investigation. Thank you.
Yeah. Well,
good evening. My name is Bill Reichard. I live at 717 Bay Ridge Avenue in Eastport. And speaking to you this evening on behalf of the Eastport Civic Association, I am the president of that association. I'm here just to talk with you briefly about R2222, and we have submitted to each one of you a written memorandum on that issue. But before I do that, I want to take a minute to thank you, Mr. Mayor, and members of the City Council for your hard work and leadership during a very difficult time that we all went through with COVID in the last several years. And listening to the testimony just before me, like you, I can't help but understand that we still have work to do. It's good to be seeing you in person. We may not always agree, but it's always good to look each other in the eye and speak directly. On R2222, we are in support of that resolution that allows a pilot program to study commercial outdoor dining in privately owned parking lots. The essence of our concern, or at least our recommendation, is that a time be used now to look at some of the maybe unintended or more specific ramifications that will come before us on 0922 when we eliminate or we anticipate the elimination of the requirement for off-street parking for the certification of restaurants. Some of these factors would include things like ADA accessibility, health and safety issues based on increased occupancy, accessory structure permits, closing times, and other noise abatement, enforcement by the city of these provisions, and exemption of the waterfront maritime zones must be addressed. And there just needs to be some time to look at that. The ECA, as you may know, the Eastport Civic Association and the Eastport Business Association, well over a month ago, formed a working group to look at issues related to parking and mobility and issues in response to a number of the pressures, this being one of them, that will come in our wards and our neighborhoods, in our communities regarding the anticipated additional parking and traffic issues, mobility issues engendered by the Hillman garage renovation, and so forth. That group, the working group, has met regularly. We meet again tomorrow, and we are on track to present specific recommendations to the city and to our community, probably by the end of this month. I'm going to end by saying that I want to tell you that we very much appreciate the cooperation of the city manager. We met early with you, Mr. Mayor. When we formed that group, you endorsed the group. We're doing the work, we're looking at the details, and we'll report on our findings. Finally, the only objection I've heard to the pilot program is that, well, we don't need one more waiting time. We don't need one more assessment. We suffer from analysis paralysis, and let's just get on with it. I assure you that it is vitally important that the community members with the city, businesses and citizens working together, look carefully at this type of legislation to make sure we do it right and make sure we do it in a way that reflects our community. R 2222 allows us to do that. We encourage you to vote favorably later this evening, and thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Bill. Next up, Natalie Bernacossa. Hey.
Well, good evening. Thank you, alderpersons. I don't need this. I was going to read, but I don't need this. I can talk by experience. I'm Natalie Bernacossa Powell. I've owned in Ward 8 since 1993 in a condominium around the corner from 4th Street. I looked forward to moving there when I saw my elderly neighbors taking the city bus that used to come all the way up to 4th Street. Then I'd see them in the mall. I thought how fantastic that was. I didn't have to wait till after the millennial to know that that was good for the environment. I knew back in the 90s and the 80s in my housing class. I know we need mass transportation. However, we're not here yet to pass a no requirement for parking for businesses. And it's not just restaurants, it's offices, it's neighbors, it's homes, it's pedestrians, it's bikers. A bus no longer comes down to 4th Street. Why? Because it's congested. Quote from the Public Works Department, it's too congested. So that stopped a long time ago. So now I do take the city bus a lot. I took it in the blizzard and I sent you a video. They got through the streets. I have to walk all the way up to 6th Street. If you take away parking requirement, how can a family of 4 or 5 drive up to the bars and the restaurants and the maritime restaurants and clubs everywhere? How can they do that? Are they going to get their family out at the only one parking lot that we have, the parking garage on Severn Avenue, and walk all the way up? They can't. So if you eliminate the requirement for parking, what are they going to do? Just walk there? I don't understand. My point is, I think we're just too soon. This is too soon. Or maybe I don't understand what the legislation is. So my point is, I'm against that. I am for studying it more, but if you eliminate the parking now, you're going to be really congested. You're not going to be able to help people like my father. I tried to help and wheel a wheelchair down there. The sidewalks are too crowded, and it's not level. And I tried to drive by Forward Brewing, but the parking lot that was not being used for parking was full of 20, 30, 40-somethings standing all over like a mixer in a college. And I couldn't park there to let him out. Well, he passed away in February, so I don't get a second chance. But you need to help all ages. So I don't think we should disregard parking right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Gay?
I know you get tired of me talking, but I know all of these people so personally because I'm just a social guy. And I know where Natalie resides. I know her area. I ride past it often. And I couldn't express enough concern for the issues that she's laid out as it relates to traffic and as it relates to the legislation that has not yet been before the Planning Commission, correct? Yep. Exactly. And so that'll be some time down the road. And so look forward to conversing with you and others about that, as well as the legislation we'll hear tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else like to come forward and speak on anything other than O13-22? Mr. Connellan, come forward.
Good evening. Good evening. My name is Jim Conlon. I live at 413 Chesapeake Avenue, Ward 8. I'm here tonight to speak about R2222. I actually had a presentation, but we're going to skip that right now, and we're just going to dwell into what was spoken already. Our neighbors over to my right, they are experiencing noise nuisances. We're experiencing that on 4th Street now. Natalie, she's experiencing the traffic. We experience that on 4th Street now. We are experiencing that because of the COVID lifting of restrictions for outdoor dining. Tonight, you're going to address R2222, which will allow that to happen for another year with no additional rules or oversight on that ordinance, resolution. For example, capacity. Capacity is based on the number of seats. You're going to allow them to continue to use parking lots and allow additional capacity. Additional capacity means more cars. It means more noise ordinance nuisances. That's what it does. So I'm asking you tonight to do one thing, and that is to amend R2222 to limit capacity to their current usage authorized. So if they have 50 seats, they're allowed 50 seats, 25 go outside, they have to take 25 away from the inside. Capacity remains the same, traffic and our current situation remains the same. It doesn't increase during the next year while you're doing your pilot program. The second item is the buffer issues. We've dealt with that for years now with several properties. Several of my neighbors have gone to court to deal with the buffer issues. Not only the buffer issues, I go along with the boundary zone adjustment issues, 2617, which was created a few years ago for Ward 8 only. In our current city code, for seasonal sales in parking lots requires a 50-foot buffer for the seasonal sales in parking lots that abut residential districts. We don't enforce that. We don't enforce that now. We're not going to enforce it during the next year during the pilot program, and we must do that because the residential owners that abut these restaurants, those buffers are for their protection. It provides them the ability to live at homes where they lived at before that didn't have restaurants, and it protects them from the noise and the other nuisances that are created for outdoor dining. So we have a city code for a 50-foot buffer. Are we going to do that during the next year? So I'm asking you to do two things with R2222. Limit the capacity to the current capacity that the restaurants are allowed to have or approved by permit. And number two is require them to follow the mandatory buffer for seasonal sales in parking lots. And in fact, you could probably resolve a lot of these issues if you just go to the seasonal sales issue and adjust that city code like Alderwoman Tierney did with parklets. So we don't need to recreate the wheel for outdoor dining. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Jim. Thank you. What do we go?
I have to because I actually have amendments. I hope to propose amendments on the floor tonight. Obviously, I agree with my colleagues. I'd like to see outdoor dining. But two quick questions for the gentleman that just became before the council.
So it's not questions. We can't cross questions yet. Yeah.
Okay, so when should I ask the gentleman councils before the council?
I'll take a call.
Yeah.
But would you rather me have the discussion tonight with him in the hallway? Okay, well, I'll have it with him in the hallway. Jim, if you could, meet me in the hallway.
I'm leaving after this. I could have bet by 7. Put it on later.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to come forward and speak? Thank you all for your testimony. Seeing no motion in the chamber, I declare comments by the general public closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item is appointments, beginning with AP 1622, appointment of Jim Martin to the Arts and Public Places
Okay.
Commission.
Is there a motion to approve AP 16-22?
So moved.
Second.
All right. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say no. Thank you. Motion passes. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Next item is the consent calendar.
Are there any objections to anything on the consent calendar? Can I get a motion to approve the consent calendar?
So moved.
Can I
Second.
get a second? Thank you. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shandemeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay? Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Mr. Mayor, may I ask a
Oh,
question?
I'm sorry, I didn't see your hand.
We just approved AP 1622. That was the appointment of Mr. Martin to the Art and Public Places. I didn't hear the name called. I heard a number, and I think we should acknowledge that that's what that is.
I put the name in my comments, Mayor.
Pardon me, I'm
I
sorry.
put the name in my comments. I read it just the way.
Okay, I'm sorry, I missed it then. I just heard the number, and oftentimes they're present, so.
Jim Martin, the actual mayor of West Street for a long
Yes,
time. We all know
absolutely,
Jim.
but he's not here, but he deserves recognition for his work, so thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item agenda.
The next item on the agenda is public hearings, beginning with 01322, Sidewalk Cafe defined.
Nope. Okay, I see no one signed up to speak.
Can I
Alderman
be
Arnett?
added as a co-sponsor, please?
We're going to add Alderman. Okay, got that. Thank you. Anyone like to come forward and speak on O-13-22? Thank you. I declare the public hearing on O-13-22 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
The next item for public hearing, Mr. Mayor, is 01422, debit card and credit card payments, convenience fees.
We have no one signed up to speak. Would anyone like to come forward and speak on O-14-22? Thank you. I declare the public hearing on O-14-22 closed. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next items are legislative actions on first readers, beginning with 01522, annual budget and appropriation and property tax levy.
Is there a motion to adopt O-15-22 on first reader?
So moved.
Second.
Second. All those in favour say aye.
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 Opposed? Thank you. Refer O-15-22 to the Planning Commission, Finance Committee, and the Financial Advisory Commission. Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item is R2322, fiscal year 2023 fees schedule.
Is there a motion to adopt R-23-22 on first reader?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Oh, do you have a question on that? Sorry.
I have a question on that. Is
Yeah.
that
Yes.
appropriate now? In the staff report, it says the fee schedule attached, but I don't see the fee schedule attached.
Director Dickinson?
Neither the budget is.
So I don't know at what point those get loaded online. I gave them to Jacqueline today in final form, so those will probably be uploaded on the website soon.
We'll get that to you. It is online, so.
I'll be glad to email them to everyone, but she will be uploading them soon. I know she has them.
The other, 24-22 also says attached. Just so
Yes, it's the same fees and fines. There's the resolutions, and then there's an attached schedule of fees that's updated with any changes for this year.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, they were all loaded. I don't know why she can't see it. We have to figure it out. But they were all loaded.
They are loaded.
Yeah, they're up on Legistar if you can access that.
Mr. Mayor, I'm not seeing this at all, man. I've been logged into the Legistar, my last is not popping up.
Okay.
Our legislator, the same thing.
It's
It's just on a
different.
different form than you. I can see the agenda, just.
So we'll get it sorted out.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sometimes if people have been advised to refresh, I don't know if that will help at all.
Okay, so that did pass. So I'm referring R-23-22, the Finance Committee, the Financial Advisory Committee. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item agenda.
Yes, the next item is R2422, fiscal year 2023 fines schedule.
Is there a motion to adopt R-24-22 on first reader?
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I refer R-24-22 to the Finance Committee and the Financial Advisory Committee. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, the next item on first reader is R-2522, Bates Middle School HVAC Renovation Project, Waiver of Permitting Fees.
Is there a motion to adopt R-25-22 on first reader?
So moved. Second.
Is there a second? All those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Or did you have a question?
No, sorry. I finished.
Thank you.
I did have a question on that, though. So, yeah, can we get information posted on, also up online about the costs, the fiscal impact?
Director Dickinson?
On which one? The maritime?
The R-2522?
Yes, we'll be putting that up soon. Some of these don't have those. We've been working on the budget all
busy on
week,
the
so
budget.
yeah. So we'll get those in the next couple days.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
I say no also, by the way. I can't see anything, so I have to vote no on it. I don't know what the fiscal impact is or even what the, yeah. It just says, please re-enter the password, so.
It's on first reader.
I still, even if it's on first reader, yeah.
Okay. You get that? Yes or no? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, R-2722, Annapolis Uprigging Maritime and Heritage Festival Fee Waiver for the purpose of waiving certain city fees for the docking of tall ships, the Pride of Baltimore 2, the Lynx, and Annapolis City Dock.
Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R-27-22 on first reader?
So moved. Second.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney?
It's the same question on these fee waivers. I know you've been busy, but could we have a fiscal analysis of this one as well?
Director Dickinson?
Yeah, she'll be getting the fiscal analysis notes on everything that's not done yet.
Thank you. I know you've been very busy.
Okay, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
Yes, sir. Mr. Mayor, there is a motion to reconsider R-1822. The vote last time we met, the council met, wasn't done properly. So we're putting this just as an administrative correction to the vote to clarify that the Director of Planning and Zoning vote go in the way that the code provides.
If you could all bear with me on that, I think we got the voting crossed over, so I need a motion to reconsider R-18-22 on first reader.
Motion to reconsider
Yep.
on first reader?
Yep. Thank you. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favour say aye. Aye. Thank you. Is there a motion to adopt R-18-22 on first reader?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, so we need Alderman Gay here. Can I get a motion to suspend the rules to allow the passage of the resolution at the meeting of its introduction? So we made a mistake on how we voted on the place? Yeah. Okay, so we all need to vote in support of that. So get a motion to suspend the rules for it?
Can I get a point of order on for the just to clarify the city attorney? So we need to suspend the rules even though it's a reconsideration?
Yeah, we're just doing the whole thing over again correctly. So we have the proper votes and correct it.
Thank you. So I need everybody on this. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Alderman Gay, you're an aye. Alderman Gay? Thank you.
Aye.
Thank you very much. Thank you. We'll do a roll call, sorry. Madam City Clerk?
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett? Aye. Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill? Aye. Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shannon Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Aye.
Alderman Savage?
Aye.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
We good?
Good one, right?
Second reader.
You just suspended the rules to adopt on second reader.
Oh,
We gotta do it.
Is there a motion to adopt R-18-22 on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
Is there a second? Thank you. Madam City
There's a
Clerk,
roll
please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett? Aye. Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pinnell Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shannon Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Aye.
Thank you. Alderman Savage?
Aye.
And that resolution.
That's it, right? Okay.
Alrighty, thought he changed his mind.
Regina had to keep me straight on that one. Okay, I messed it up last week.
Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, the legislative actions on second readers, beginning with R-1522, Anne Arundel County Coalition for Police Accountability Recommendations.
Okay, is there a motion to adopt R-15-22 on second reader?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any comments? Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir.
Alderman O'Neill.
I had a question in the fiscal impact report. It said it has no fiscal impact, but won't it eventually come to a budget? Because it's not funded.
Is your mic on?
I will,
Sorry.
Can't hear.
Alderman Savage, if you could clarify.
Yeah, and City Attorney probably has a better answer than I on this, but my understanding is it's all administered, that board is going to be administered by the county. It will have an impact to them, but I don't believe we've been contacted about any kind of contribution. We only have, well, the legislation is not passed yet, so we will have 1 or 2 representatives from the city on that board, and they will have jurisdiction over us, but my understanding is we don't have any cost to us related to that board, unless the county decides to ask us for that, and they haven't.
Okay, thank you.
Finlayson had a hand up first.
Yeah, just to add, I think Ms. McCoy has been keeping us pretty well abreast of the cost of this, and the county is supposed to be bearing all of the costs.
Okay. We hope.
Ms. O'Neill, Alderman, I was just saying that Ms. McCoy has been keeping us abreast of the financial implications, and the county is supposed to be bearing at least the cost for this piece of it. There's some other things that are going to come our way, and the city manager can speak to this.
Yeah, I think you hit it right on the head. So the state legislation on police reform definitely has a lot of costs associated with it. This is a piece of that as it relates to the Police Accountability Board, and that's the county's responsibility to set these up. That whole structure is set up by the counties throughout the state. So we won't have any impacts. The county will for that piece of the state legislation, but we won't.
I misunderstood from Ms. McCoy in a meeting about a month ago that she was talking about how much it was going to cost and it would come down to us later at a public safety committee meeting.
Do you want to respond to that, Alderman Savage?
Yeah, and she has presented us that information in the past, but that's in the larger sense of the state legislation that was passed. This particular component of the state legislation is not going to impact us, but there are other components, many other components to the legislation, which we don't have to adopt because we have to do it. And so I think that's probably is reflected. Well, I guess it has to be reflected in the budget, assuming, I don't know how those are going yet, but that's going to be a good question for the Finance Committee in terms of, but this is just this one particular subset.
Thank you very much for the clarification.
Thank you. Did you, Alderman Tierney, or not?
Yeah, the conundrum I have is on this legislation before I vote is I respect the city attorney's office, and there seems to be some concern, and it's unsettling because I've heard counters to it. Can you give me or the council any guidance on how a yay vote is detrimental or not?
part of what is going on at the county level is still in the state of flux. Some of the things that are being supported in the city's legislation have already been ruled out at the county level. So to the extent that you voted for something, or you vote that the county do something that it has now decided not to do, it'll be a non-factor to the county's eventual organization of the PAB. I can't speak to all of the amendments, but I know there were 8 amendments that went up to the county council last week. And of those items that were included in your city resolution, 2 or 3 of them were not approved at the county level to go forward to change the structure of the PAB. So if you vote on them today as currently written, they will have no effect on the county. As a matter of fact, whatever you do has no effect on the county because the county has all the authority to set this up in accordance with the state law. And it'll be set up the way the state requires it to be set up. If any changes are to be made, you will see those come as a county council resolution prior to the county council considering it. And there are others. That's why I say it's in a state of flux, because there are other kind of amendments coming at the county level, I suppose.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
That's it. Thank you. Alderman Gay, and then Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I'll leave most of the clarification to my colleague, but what I would like to state is that in the spirit of it being signed, I had an opportunity to connect with a number of state legislators supporting this legislation, and I'll allow him to expand a little more on it. But for the most part, they've supported expansion at the local level, and they've made clear the municipalities can do so. What I'll say as it relates to the 2 amendments that failed that the city has co-sponsored is anything is possible. The council, as it relates to the county council, has not ruled out bringing back forth any amendments, changing the verbiage to support our recommendations as it relates to what the city council has proposed. What the city attorney's office have proposed, and I respect both, our city attorney Mike Lyles and our assistant city attorney Carrie Berger, the certain members of the council, of the council and of the state legislature have made it clear that is not their objective. They made it explicitly clear they will allow the municipalities and counties to control the narrative as it relates to both of these, the PAB and charging committee. I completely understand what our assistant city attorney, who has primarily focused on this legislation, Carrie Berger, who I've talked to extensively, has noted her concern as it relates to legislation, and I'm assuming the concern of the Office of Law as it relates primarily to the investigatory powers of the PAB, correct? And that just has not been made clear on the state or local level as to where our authority lies. It's something that's left up to legal interpretation. As it relates to legal interpretation, we've seen even on the Supreme Court, legal interpretation means completely, it means one thing to me as it means to you. And so I would encourage you to think more of the conscience of the creators of the legislation as they brought it before not only the council, but the entire state of Maryland, who had advocated for this legislation in the year 2020. I think it's incredibly important that we not forget the actions that took place, but I think it's also equally important to take into consideration the police departments and their I don't want to say the miscorrect word, Mr. City Attorney. Is it their legal? Because you're the legal authority, correct? But their as it relates to their powers with their signing on to, what is that called? The what is it when they? No, not the subpoena powers. I'm blanking.
Not sure
I
where
wish
you're going.
Carrie, because I literally met with her today and she explained it so well. Nonetheless, I don't, outside of that one issue, which the city attorney has expressed clearly, which as it relates to the investigatory powers, I really don't think that we're in any legal trouble expanding access to our PAB or charging committee with the recommendations that we've made, considering that they'll be voted on by the county council. This is nonetheless a recommendation of us to them, based off of our constituency. And so I think that we should take that into consideration, as well as the consideration of the police department and their respective opinions as it relates to the legislation. But I don't really see anything wrong with this as it relates to, severing any public or police trust within the body. I think this is an opportunity, as I said to the assistant city attorney, for us to really see what can work. I mean, we don't know what will work from the PAB or charging committee until we actually get it in legislation. I think the council is supposed to vote on that at their next meeting, but it has to be finalized by July the 1st, if I'm not mistaken. And so I would just obviously encourage my colleagues to take that in consideration. This is a recommendation to the county council, who's already wrote down 2 of our recommendations, but nonetheless, we have to put forward the public's concern.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson?
I'd just like to remind us that this is a resolution. And as a resolution, it gives the sense of this council to the county council. In the first whereas, it lists, 20 or 30 or 40, I don't think they're all listed here, organizations that have offered input that have been used in this resolution. So we are supporting not only our will, but the will of any number of community groups, some of whom we represent and some of whom we don't. So this is just a sense of the council to the county council. We support these amendments. And as you've said, some of them have passed, some have not, but they're not finished with the legislation. So this is timely to send them this message that we support the recommendations from these groups. That's all this does. We can't force them, as the attorney has said, to do anything, but we surely can tell them how we feel about it, and that's what this does. Thank you.
Alderman Savage?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, and I'm not going to reiterate what my colleague said. I'll move on to one of my other points, which are that just to clarify, I guess one of the points of disagreements out there had to do with how much leeway the county has in terms of adjusting the powers of the various board bodies, the 3 of them. And that was that's the premise of one of the legal concerns. Since then, I'll say at the last county council meeting, which I attended and provided testimony at, it was mentioned that former Alderwoman, now Delegate Shanika Henson, and Delegate Sandy Bartlett are on the record stating that their intention was to set the floor, not the ceiling, on what local jurisdictions, in this case the counties, can do in terms of adjusting the powers of the board. And they have requested a clarifying opinion from the state's attorney general. However, as my colleagues have said, this is a resolution. Legally, I think there still needs to get worked out. But again, we're just expressing our resolve here and trying to honor some of the coalition recommendations. Again, it's simply recommendations. I think the recommendation, but even the recommendations that bring up questions, again, we have to remember, have to do with providing additional optional powers to one of the bodies, the actual PAB, and not obligatory powers, but the option to provide additional oversight, which meets the overall intention of the state law. So With that, I hope you all will join us in at least expressing our resolve and recommendation one way or another. Thank you.
Attorney?
I think that we just went a little bit in the weeds with this, that I think that if the resolution expressed some kind of, well, let me back up. What is the genesis of this resolution? Is it to have more transparency? Is it to have more accountability? Is it to have more, residents' involvement? Because the amendments are a moving target right now. I mean, as the city attorney said, I'm not really sure what's applicable and what's not applicable, so it's kind of messy resolution. I mean, I think it would have been more acceptable if it was just a resolution in support of these concerns. But let me make a question out of that. What is the genesis of this resolution? What is the genesis of it, if I may?
Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, the genesis is that myself and a co-sponsor felt that we needed to introduce legislation to weigh in on and address some of the recommendations that we've heard from the 30-40 coalition groups, community groups, many of which are in the city or have city residents who are members of. And we will be impacted by the county legislation, and we thought it was important to chime in. So as far as the resolution, since it is a resolution, it doesn't have to be clean, so to speak. It doesn't have to. It's not establishing new law. We are trying to reflect some of the recommendations that the coalition developed along with ACLU and a number of other organizations that took a deep dive on this. And a lot of these recommendations were also supported by folks from the state level. And so these are simply recommendations. And I think one other comment to in terms of where this is coming from is, keep in mind also, interesting note is Montgomery County, who also has to pass a PAB. They have a, I'm going to mess up the name, but they have Office of Legislative Oversight, I believe it's called, they do reviews of legislation in terms of social justice and diversity impacts, and looking through that lens at legislation. And they released a document finding that they felt that, as written by the state, that it wasn't going to move the needle one way or another as far as furthering the racial justice needle towards the side we want to go. And so that's why they actually had additional recommendations from Montgomery County as far as how they could tweak the legislation. And I think that's where the spirit of these recommendations from the coalition come on that end, is we heard from Rules in Government, we heard at the county, community organizations that feel like they still want to see more accountability because they still, we need to get to a point where these community associations can feel like they trust the police. And as I said at the county, these community groups are the ones who are going to be most impacted by this, by the PAB and the accountability measures. And so I felt like we have to be responsive to their recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Gay?
If I could, Alderwoman Tierney, if it's appropriate.
Yeah.
I'd just like to add, my colleague was 100% right. I just wanted to add my 2 cents as it relates to a couple of things. One, I really, really, really don't want anyone to think that we're undermining the office of law in this process. I, nor Alderman Savage, to my knowledge, have a law degree. I don't know if you... and so we respect, obviously, the research that has went into this. And particularly as it relates to such a sensitive issue as it relates to policing within our communities. I think the only piece that I disagree with the Office of Law, and that I would hope we encourage, and I've had conversations with the police chief, Deputy Police Chief, and Ronald McCoy as it relates to this legislation. I am really, really supportive of this because the general public is supportive of this as it relates to policing and building trust within the community. Not to say that steps have not already been taken to do so. I think the Annapolis Police Department has done a tremendous job, in particular as it relates to violent crime within the city of Annapolis. But one thing I will go out on a limb for within the particular PAB is allowing non-violent offenders to participate on the particular commission that we're discussing. And that was something that was voted down by the county council. That would obviously include even individuals who, which we've seen in the last couple of weeks, personally attacked me. But do I think they deserve a right to serve on a PAB? They didn't kill anyone. It was a non-violent offense. And I think that being intimately involved with the criminal justice system, and I think something that we've missed from this, and I hate to, our two officers in the back, something that we've missed in this conversation is we have not yet had a police officer come before us and share their perspective on this particular bill. We had the chief, the deputy chief, and administrative staff, but not any on the ground, officers really share their personal opinion. And obviously I would want to hear that as it ties into the hopeful community participation and trust. In particular, like I said, look, obviously it would even mean that people that maybe have attacked any of us at this dais, but a nonviolent offense is a nonviolent offense. And if we want to promote criminal justice reform, we should get serious about that. Let me make it extremely clear that any violent offense should be prosecuted within the court of law. I stand by that 100%, as does our police chief, and I'm sure our police department. But I would encourage participation, and I hope I'm just not ignorantly stating this, and with all due respect for the officers in the back, as it relates to the non-violent offenders serving on the board, and just offering their perspective. And I mean that with no disrespect at all. Obviously, you all have been incredible to myself and to the city over, the last couple of months and years since Chief Jackson been brought in, and that's where I stand on this, and that's why I think it's important to at least acknowledge the amendment that we put forward, that the council is only voted down by one vote. And so it could be passed, and I think it's important just to allow that voice and opportunity, because we can learn from that. And I say that again with all due respect for law enforcement officials.
So let's take a vote. Thank you. Regina?
Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
No.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Yay.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
No.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shandemeyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Aye.
Okay, that resolution passes.
Hey, what about aye?
Sorry, Alderman Savage. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next on the agenda.
Yes, sir. The next item on the agenda is R 2222, pilot program to study commercial outdoor dining in privately owned parking lots.
Is there a motion to adopt R-22-22?
But
Yes.
I'm so sorry. As it relates to the last amendment, at some point I would love to have the opinion of our law enforcement officials who serve. No? Okay, sorry.
Definitely.
You have to.
But not right here. Not right here.
Not right. They have representatives, and you should speak with them. Speaking to individual officers is not allowed by the code, but you can talk to the chief and maybe get the union folks to come out.
Thank you. So could I get a motion for R-22-22, please? Can I get a second?
Second.
And we have an amendment. Do you want me to move it, or do you want to move it?
You go first.
Okay, does everyone?
I'll help you along the way here. Is it on, well, I'll do it. I move Amendment 1
Yep.
to the resolution.
Does everybody have a copy of amendment number 1?
Second.
Second on the amendment, great.
Yeah.
So,
So it speaks to establishing rules and regulations in this process, which was sort of the, let me back up. I guess the marching orders of the mayor during the 90-day emergency order extension was that we had this time to make outside dining, wherever it is, legal, for lack of a better word, or abiding rules and regs, et cetera. So we have a little bit of catch up to do here. So we just wanted to amend the resolution so that we focus on getting these rules and regulations done, because there's a process that they then have to be submitted to the rules and city government. It also says that there should be some fine or fee addressed as well. The other concept of the mayor early on was that to tie outside dining into transit fund, and so this is an avenue to have some vehicle to get to have that funding. Whether it's a permit, whether it's a fee or application fee or whatever you ultimately decide in your study to go into the transit fund. Is that about all?
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I'm looking for clarification because I don't understand what this means. Go ahead.
So the idea is, if we are going to displace parking from a parking lot that is permitted, that we believe, because that is impacting the surrounding areas, that some fee should be assessed by the planning and zoning director to offset that. And that fee should go into the transportation fund, because now we need to push people towards other parking assets or other parts of the city where there is a place for them to park, now that that parking space does not exist on
So that's the fee in lieu of the zero parking requirements?
Mr. City Attorney might...
You have a question, ma'am?
Yes, explain.
Explain which part.
The zero parking requirements. There can either be a fee in lieu of, or...
Well, R22 seeks to do a study of parking on privately owned parking lots for a year. While that's undergoing, this amendment is really to direct the planning department to prepare regulations so that the eventual purpose of R19, which is to eliminate parking requirements altogether, can be done in an orderly fashion over the next year.
So the two options would be rules promulgated for a fee in lieu of, or if there's no parking allowed or required.
Sure, they would have regulations and a permit process developed to do all of those things.
And that would be at the applicant's request?
Yes.
So they could decide if they would rather have a fee in lieu of?
No, this is really just general language to give the department the authority to develop the regulations to take into account these two items: zero parking requirement and fee in lieu. What does that look like for the application process?
But that's initiated by the applicant. Is that what?
Everything would be initiated by the applicant during the study period.
Okay. Not much better, Mr. Laws. I'm sorry. Thank you.
Trying to even the playing field a little bit. If people are going to pay for a parklet and that displaced parking, we also feel like it could be shared by people who are displacing parking from their own property.
I'm still not clear about who initiates this.
The regulations is really the intent of this amendment, because everything is still unclear. The regulations will give it more clarity and more definiteness. This just gives the authority for the department to develop regulations around all of the concepts in our 2222 to maintain use of parking spaces But if there's an application, what does the application look like? If there's a fee, what does the fee look like? If people want no parking, what does that look like? So it's really just, this is just the beginning stage. It's just the authority.
I got that. It's just the applicant makes the request part that's confusing me.
The applicant will always make a request, because right now they have parking associated with their use of their facility. And so if they want to vary that, they have to apply to the city. But there are no regulations to do that right now, so this is to allow them to do that.
Throughout the duration of the study. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Alderman Arnett was next, then Alderman Gay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Although Alderman Schonelmeyer could speak to this better than I, because it was he who brought to our attention the work of Professor Shoup from UCLA that talked about a three-step process. One is to remove the requirement for off-street parking, but to then charge the economic value of the on-street parking, but then most importantly, to return the benefits of the fees for the on-street parking back to the community that's being affected. That's how I interpret this amendment, and in that spirit, I certainly support it.
Thank you. Alderman Gay was next, then Alderman Schneidermeyer.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor. I obviously agree with the recommendations of my colleagues as it relates to outdoor dining. I mean, who doesn't want to sit outside and have a drink, have a nice meal, and whatever culinary cuisine you prefer in the city of Annapolis? The issues I have with this legislation are simple. I don't know why on God's green earth would we allow outdoor dining without any rules or regulations for a year. We'd essentially be allowing them to do whatever they wanted to do once they've submitted an application for a year with loose restrictions and guidance, restrictions and guidance, which I don't believe are appropriate in considering the number of residential concerns we've had. And again, I am a huge advocate for outdoor dining. I love to sit in the market square and, celebrate the day or whatever is going on. But I think it's incredibly irresponsible to pass blanket legislation considering communities that are directly facing restaurants in residential areas, and particularly in Ward 8. I'm not the alderman of Ward 8, but a lot of people have reached out from Ward 8. And so that's where I have issues at, and I think that we need to, tonight, pass some form of amendment to allow for comfortability for those residents. I completely agree with my colleague from Ward 8 that there should be a trial. I think a year is perfectly fine, but there has to be some rules and regulations. I mean, it just cannot be done willy-nilly for a year. And so that's where I stand on this. I think it's a great piece of legislation, but we have to talk through this tonight. We cannot pass this.
Alderman Schneidermeyer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. While my instinct is to bristle slightly at comparing dining in private spaces to the parklets, considering that parklets take up public land from the city, and therefore fines should be established. And private lots are private land, and people should have the right to do what they want on their land. Maybe it's just the libertarian in me. That said, this amendment is a good way to potentially get some extra transit funding. When you reduce overall parking, the demand for transit is increased very significantly. And that's been backed up in books such as The High Cost of Free Parking, to the Sprawl Repair Manual, to countless other studies into this issue. It's these parking regulations that prohibit the transit. Again, every academic study has shown that. And as for regulations and rules, we have these. Like, they can't go into public land with drinks. It's their land. They can do what they want on it.
So I'm going to get Alderman Arnett, remembering that McGarvey's closes pretty soon.
You're right, I know.
And this is our last.
So, I just want to point out quickly, there are two sets of rules and regulations that govern all restaurants. First, every restaurant is approved under special exception, and that comes with rules including the number of seats. Secondly, in the process we will continue to use, we're not doing recovery zones, but we are continuing to use the special event application format, and several restaurants have already put in those applications. They've been adjudicated by the staff in planning and zoning, and they have further specifications. You cannot have as many people drinking on your private property as you want. There are limitations to that. I think the issue that Mr. Conlon is bringing to us is more a matter of enforcement. The rules are there. The number of seats are brought forth in both the special exception and in the special event, and that needs to be enforced, and consideration for your nearby neighbors needs to be given, but that's an enforcement issue.
Thank you, Alderman Gay, then Alderman Savage.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And again, look, I support outdoor dining with rules and regulations. Everything has to be regulated. And what the alderman just said is just factually not true. I don't know how many times he's been down to Flora Brewery, which they keep touting as the most diverse restaurant in the city, which is absolutely not true. I encourage you to look through every single name that has come through the public testimony as I. It's not true. They're not the most diverse restaurant in the city. Also, I don't know if you've been down on a Saturday. They're backed up to their neighbor's fence. Now, I mean, obviously, look, I don't own a restaurant. I had no fair game in Cam or whomever's operation of business, but there has to be some rules and regulations, regardless of how long you've rented or owned the property. I think that if anyone started a brewery business or a brunch business or any entertainment business, it has to do a lot with the amendment, Mr. Alderman. I think that regardless of your position, there should be some respect for the residential properties. Again, I don't represent a majority of those residential properties, but if we are narrowing it down to one particular place of business, which the city attorney has instructed us not to do, I'm siding on, I just don't think it's fair.
So,
Okay, so we have an amendment
Yeah.
on its first and second. Let's take a vote, please.
this is on the rules and regs. Yeah.
All those in favour say aye.
For the rents only?
This is
This
for
is
the
just an
amendment.
amendment for the rules and regulations.
Aye.
All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Okay.
For the amendment.
For the rents, correct?
This is for the amendment.
So now I can, Mr.
I
Mayor?
think you're voting against that, Alderman Gay.
Mr. Mayor? So,
I'm not really against the entire amendment. I mean, this is, obviously I wouldn't be against a fee in lieu of reduced or zero parking, but I think there are just certain aspects of the amendment that shouldn't be voted on.
Okay. So I think I'm going to take that as a yes then, because you did.
No, you'll take it as a no.
Okay, a no, so.
Or matter of fact, take it as an abstain, because I agree, but I disagree, so abstain.
Thank you. Thank you.
yeah, okay.
Alderman Tierney.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to introduce a friendly amendment, number 2 it would be,
Yep.
sort of in line with establishing these rules and regulations. The time of a year is I feel, there is a sense of urgency. I know it's not my ward, but Hillman will be down. There will be infiltration of traffic. We are trying to get parklets. We've done a lot of work downtown. Stephen Rice with Planning and Zoning has done a lot of work to establish rules and regulations. I know that they're different legally, but my amendment is to change the 12 months to 60 days. I see no reason why this can't be done in 60 days and why a whole entire year is needed for this, especially with the sense of urgency and the shortage of parking So my amendment would change line, it's page 2. Where does it mention the 12 months? 12 months. Hold on. Did you find it? Yeah, no, that says pilot study no later than 30 days. I'm looking for the 12 months.
I need to line 18, sorry.
Yeah, if you change,
Alderwoman, is this an amendment on the floor?
yeah, it's an amendment on the floor.
Okay, okay.
There, thank you, it's the last sentence, sorry. And it would read, and be it further resolved by the Annapolis City Council that the effective end date of this resolution shall be 60 days from the date its passage.
Second.
60 days. Get those rules and regs done. And
Exactly.
boom, sorry.
Second.
Okay. So, on the Second Amendment. Okay, we've got discussion on the Second Amendment now, so Alderman Arnett.
That would mean that outdoor dining ends in 60 days. And I don't think 60 days is enough time. I think there are an incredible number. If you read the excellent staff report from Eric Lashinsky from Planning and Zoning, there are a number of issues and complexities. There are also complexities about whether or not there are going to be parking zones, parking districts, and each one of those will have an impact. I think I have a real concern about a negative impact on restaurant businesses. And I think that we need some time. I've asked Acting Director Melanoff and Mr. Lashinsky and Eric and Stephen Rice, Director of Economic Development, to help us look at how these kinds of things, including parking zones and districts, have impacted businesses. That's not something you can do quickly, and it's not something that we measured when we had the recovery zones in place. So I would reject that. I would certainly not call it a friendly amendment, but I also think it doesn't give us enough time, and it would end the outdoor dining in 60 days.
Well,
so I don't
yeah.
think that's what anybody wants.
I know the city attorney will disagree with this, but what, and I can't say establishments publicly, but if that situation goes on for a year and you have certain establishments having this outside dining freely, for lack of a better word, in their parking lots, as it were, meanwhile, we're trying to have restaurants apply, pay a monthly charge, follow rules and regs, meet HPC guidelines and all that. I think that we're going to have some issues with some restaurants saying, "Is this fair? Is this equitable?" I think the whole problem is this resolution is this like a firewall to prevent 09, what is that number? 09. I mean, the fact that we are just commingling these two pieces of legislation and also misconstruing this as whether you're for or against outside dining. I frequent Forward Brewing all the time, and I don't appreciate them being the poster child of outside dining in the city of Annapolis. Every application of outside dining is different. So it's unfair that we're sort of, the optics look like we are, voting for or against outside dining in response to this resolution. I think that's just, it's unfortunate. But let me ask a question. What is your end game here, Alderman Arnett? Is this to address, obviously, outside dining is popular. What is the end game here? What are you trying to accomplish that in this year?
So first of all, I asked for it to sunset 1st of November, which is basically the end of the outdoor dining season, but I was happy to accept a year. If we get the study done and we have a movement forward, then this resolution will be done. The end game is twofold. One, today, the state of emergency runs out. There is not any regulation that allows outdoor dining in private spaces. And it is against the special exceptions for the restaurants, and it is against their special events for those that have already applied. So that will have to stop. Businesses need some certainty. It costs a lot of money to rent these tents and tables and so forth. For the boatyard, it's $5,000 a month. They're not going to rent the tent and put it up and then 60 days later need to take it down. 09-22 is its own business and it has its own course to take, and this does not speak to 09-22. Secondly, I have never once, nor would I intend to mention Forward Brewing or any other restaurant. This is for all outdoor dining across the city with regard to using private off-street spaces for outdoor dining. That is all we're looking at here. We're not looking at parkettes. We're not looking at any of the other kinds of things. We're looking at private off-street spaces, which are largely used now per requirements of their special exception for parking. Okay. So there's not much mystery here. It's pretty straightforward.
So the amendment's still on the floor.
So we could vote it down, or
Gets voted down, or I could change it to 90 days, but it sounds like you need
we
the
could
12 months.
make the same arguments over and over again, or we
Yeah.
could just take a vote now, please.
Yeah, let's just vote.
Right.
So what are we voting
Alderman
on?
Gay.
I would support my colleague's amendment. I mean, either put it at 60 days or put it at 6 months, half a year. I mean, I just don't understand the reason to allow outdoor dining for a year without any rules. So then we could go, okay, all right, with limited rules, Ross. Right. So then we have to go back, observe and adjust just put it at 6 months. It puts us to the end of the summer. Okay. We can accurately adjust what we think is wrong or right. I mean, I just don't get it. If people have concerns.
The motion we have now is for 2 months. So
60 days.
Okay, yeah, I don't own a restaurant, so.
So I would like to take a vote on that unless you really need to speak, Alderman Finlayson.
Sorry, but I really would like to speak, but I'll be quick. Our restaurant outdoor dining, whether it's currently prohibited or currently allowed, whatever, it's cyclical. You know, the level of dining is very different in the spring than it is in the summer, than it is in the fall and the winter. So the 12-month makes sense, period. Thank you.
Okay, all those in favor of the Tyranny Amendment number 2, say aye.
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 Those against, say no.
No.
No. Roll call, please. No.
I know, I gambled.
No.
Aye. That was an aye, yeah.
Aye.
Aye.
Nay.
Aye.
No.
Right, we got a drop dead date in 60 days, right?
60 days.
Really? Yes?
Budget.
Oh, wow. Thank you. Steve Rice, I think, is already working on them.
Thank you. Okay, is, I'm gonna get a motion, yeah. Is there a motion to adopt R-22 as amended on second reader?
So moved.
Second.
Second. Madam City Clerk, please call the roll.
Yes, sir. Mayor Buckley?
Aye.
Alderman Arnett?
Aye.
Alderwoman Tierney?
Aye.
Alderwoman O'Neill?
Aye.
Alderwoman Pendle Charles?
Aye.
Alderwoman Finlayson?
Aye.
Alderman Shannon Meyer?
Aye.
Alderman Gay?
Aye.
And Alderman Sanders?
Aye.
And that resolution carries.
Thank you. Mr. City Attorney, please present the next item on the agenda.
That is the conclusion of the agenda, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Is there anything else for good order? Alderman Gay.
Thank you so much, Mr. Mayor, and I know people are tired of hearing from me, but that's why we were elected, right? Listen, let me just make this very clear. I am so sad to see Susie Smith go. I don't know if she's hearing this or in the room right now. I know, and I'm just so sad. I'm not looking forward to you being replaced and starting over, and I just think we've had a fabulous 4 years. I love you. I've enjoyed the conversation and insight that you have provided to me over the course of the last 2 years. You've just been great. And I hope that whoever is stepping into your shoes I have not met could meet the level of professionalism and dedication that you brought to the job. Yes. Yeah, Susie, you're such a friend. I look forward to hopefully seeing you in Eastport. I love. I've had y'all. I don't think the public. So many times I've just popped up in Susie's office, literally in the middle of the day, and just had phenomenal conversations with you. I'm so grateful for that. I'm so grateful for you, really, honestly, and I hope to still have that same friendship moving forward. And I thank you very much.
Thank you. Alderman Tierney.
I didn't want the opportunity to go by. Thank you, Dwan, for not letting this go. Susie, your open door policy, I guess, whatever, is one that just can't be matched. I don't know how many times I've walked by your office. You might even be, doing something, but you always take the time to talk to me, and I just the value in that is just hard to say. But and you always give me wise, sometimes tough, advice. But I can't thank you enough, and also, your husband is near and dear to me as well. So thank you. Yeah, I'll take him. Right.
I would say thanks to Susie as well, but I have another announcement. Sorry, no, don't want to steal that thunder. As many of you know, I manage the Food Friday program. It's at Pitt Moyer on Fridays. We are currently serving, delivering food to 190 homes in Annapolis, in the city. And I could use extra help this Friday because it's Good Friday. I have a lot of my regular drivers that are either out or going to church, and I just want to put a plea out to council members, staff who might be off that would like to come and give me an hour and a half on Friday. We start packing at 10, we deliver at 11. It will be very fun, I can guarantee you, and we are delivering Easter baskets to all of the kids on our list. The 492 children that are on our list will each receive a chocolate bunny. Hopefully they're not listening, and Easter eggs. But if you want to help, please let me know.
No chance.
And Jim Martin is a continual volunteer. Yeah.
Thank you. Alderman Finlayson.
Yes, thank you, Susie. To the Food Friday, where? You said 10 o'clock? Where?
Pitt Moyer.
At Pitt Moyer?
In the gym.
In the gym, okay. And my question is for the administration, the mayor, when are we gonna find out about parking? Are we in the garage? Are we out of the garage? When does that start? And do we have our own private little limo that's picking us up when we get there to bring us here and then take us back at the end of the night, including staff who's here after we're gone?
I think we'll do the outreach after the meeting, and Mr. City Manager will
And I was
clarify.
kidding about the limo service. Let's be clear about that. We're talking about one of those little jitneys or whatever. We just want to know what the plan is.
Absolutely.
Gods.
Gods.
Is somebody answering my
No,
question?
no, well, we will. It's on a
We'll
week-to-week
provide that
basis.
information offline. We'll provide that information offline.
Okay.
Thank you. Alderman Pendle Charles.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can't ditto and echo enough ditto regarding Susie. Same thing, wandered in, stayed in for 3 hours, and but thank you so much, Susie. God bless you.
All right, thank you, Susie. Okay, with no items left on, Alderman Shannemeyer?
Thank you, Susie. Motion to adjourn.
Can I get a second? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned. First live meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.